Okay. All right, we'll start. So this show is kind of like just the general overview of what an energy audit is, what you should be expecting from one, and some easy wins that you could implement yourselves now before you get one, and who to contact and stuff like that. Okay, so the benefits of an energy audit. So mainly an energy audit, it's just a process of evaluating a building or facility's energy, and then identifying ways to recommend it. Usually the goal is to try and get a cost reduction for most businesses. Some businesses, they focus more on carbon emission reduction, but you should still see a cost saving if they're a good energy auditor and that kind of stuff. The main process of it kind of is you have an initial call or a discovery of some sort to try and figure out, okay, what audit would suit you the best. Then you do a site visit, then you try and collect your data, usually during the site visit or in emails afterwards. You analyze that data, you develop a report with recommendations of solutions to install, and then you usually will support the installation either with doing the design or the actual installation, depending on what the auditor does normally. The environmental benefits. So the main benefits are reduction in carbon emissions. That's kind of usually the goal nowadays anymore. You've also got the improved energy efficiency, improved air quality because of the reduction of emissions, mainly reduced water usage and increased sustainability. Usually there's some kind of environmental footprint thing that someone wants you to look into in an audit, and you can usually ask an auditor to look at something if you need as well. That's kind of the general gist. This is an example from one of our audits, just showing the difference you can get in emissions and stuff. Financial benefits, reduce your energy costs. That's usually the large incentive here in Ireland anyway, to do an audit, is rising energy costs and so on like that. Increase equipment efficiency, tax incentives, increase the value of your property, increase competitiveness. And then if there's grants to install stuff, like for instance, if you always wanted solar or whatever, they're quite good as well. It can vary the benefit in euro depending on the site and depending on what solutions you go with. Things like heat pumps aren't as good typically for money, but they're really good for emissions. So if emissions are more of a priority, you usually don't see that big of a cost saving. But for other sites that can install loads of solar, you'll see a bigger difference, or that can do major changes and stuff. Yeah, so that's kind of the financial benefits. Building benefits, obviously you've got your performance, usually of a process or the building itself will improve, increase comfort, improved indoor air quality, increase property value, compliance with regulations. There's loads more, but it depends really on the facility. So if you're a heavy process one, you'll have a lot of benefits in terms of process savings. If you're like an office or something, you could have quite a lot of savings just on control stuff. And then obviously upgrades to installation and upgrades to lighting and other equipment around the place and stuff. It really depends on the site, but you should see an improved performance as well as the financial and environmental benefits typically. Some opportunities that we look at, these are just a list of some examples. So yeah, sorry, the headset cut out. Lights, PIR sensors, building management systems, energy management systems, solars, heat pumps, motors, VSDs, insulation, air compressor reductions, biomass, HVAC controls, chiller upgrades, CHPs, wind turbines, process. These are kind of the main ones that we end up looking at a lot. We've a list of about another 1,700 technologies that could be implemented on sites, and we've done about 623 different solutions at the moment. But this list can go on forever. These are just kind of the big hitters that come up on most sites, if you're looking for easy wins at the moment. So if you're going off now and you're like, I'm not sure if I need an energy audit, but you want to get some easy wins, these are probably the places to look. LED upgrades, air compressor pressure reduction, reduce the consumption at peak hours because you get the demand charge at the moment. Install programmable thermostats to optimize heating and cooling, use energy efficient equipment and appliances, implement a power management system for office equipment, encourage employees to conserve energy, use natural light instead of artificial where possible, implement preventive maintenance on HVAC systems, use occupancy sensors to turn off lights, and then check your bills for any unusual tariffs that you don't understand, because sometimes there's something you shouldn't be charging for. They're kind of easy wins you can go off and do yourselves. They don't take a lot. Air compressor pressure reduction usually just involves a leak survey and just put some tape then on the areas where the minor leaks are and then fix the bigger leaks. All the other ones are kind of self-explanatory. Deliverables from an audit. So the main deliverables is you want an energy breakdown at the end, because that'll tell you where to focus your initiatives, what's your biggest users, all that kind of stuff. It'll usually come in a pie chart of some sort or a table. There's obviously, you want a breakdown of your bills. Most will either do this kind of system or they'll do like a trend kind of graph. If you have copies of all of your bills, you can do a more detailed one, which kind of looks like this, where you go night and day rates, give you a bit more understanding. Then you'll get a list typically of solutions, which includes the grants that you can get for solutions and the savings. And then you'll get a summary of what you made it savings on, euro, CO2, and kilowatts. Typically that's usually what's involved. Other things here, you can get a process solution calculations if it's a more advanced audit, KPI benchmarks if you're looking for them. It's important for certain industries to have that. The available grants, detailed analysis of opportunities, detailed energy report, you should get at most audits a fixed price for the design stage and the full project, especially if it's a bigger audit like an obligated party audit or something like that. You should be able to get quotes with it as well. That's kind of deliverables. Here's an example of what an opportunity list would look like. They're usually included as the last section of an audit. They can be called the financial summary sometimes, but they'll list out all the solutions you looked at, the potentials for savings, the capex, the payback, any grants available, any credits, carbon tax, so on and so on and so on. It's different for different countries. And then, what's your payback after grants and stuff for each individual solution. And that'll give you a better choice of how to pick what to implement. Items auditors typically need. So in most audits will always need this: 12 months utility bills, building occupancy, building operating hours, access to the site to do the actual audit, and then any previous quotes you got for any solutions you're looking at implementing. Optionals to get a bit more detail or for specific sites, relevant data sheets, drawings, SCADA screenshots or EMS data, available motor list if it's a large site, any other relevant information, around processes and stuff like that. Drawings are important especially if you're doing installation upgrades and stuff, because it'll allow you to accurately calculate what the savings will be if you're upgrading installation or windows and stuff like that. That's typically what they look for. This is a audit we did for a plastics company. They're going to decrease their spend by 100K, emissions by 48%, about 6.7 year payback, and they electrifying their site with this. So that's an added benefit, because it means if you install more solar or wind or anything in the future, you can get away from using the main grid as your supply. So that's just an example in there. This is another way the energy breakdown can be shown. You can do it in a table. This is common for SEI at the moment in Ireland, but it's the same as the pie chart. This is just more info about us. So projects that we've done across 151, 34 countries. We've saved about this many tons of CO2 for people, and this amount cost savings. These are other technologies that we do a lot of work with. If anybody is looking for something specific, types of audits that we offer and that most other auditors will offer as well, is they'll have some kind of SME style audit, usually for companies with less than 250 employees. This would be considered what they call an ASHRAE level 2 audit. And that's the system they use to rank audits kind of globally. It's the standard is ASHRAE. So there's level 2 audits, or most of them will be for SMEs. Level 3 audits are for obligated parties or people who they have to report their energy audit up to some other governing body. That's for over 250 employees typically. And these, there's more in-depth analysis. It's less focused on the breakdown and more focused on the investment side of things. Specialized energy audits are stuff like carbon neutrality roadmaps, process optimization, energy analysis, building, modeling, things that require a little bit more of a specialist thing. And there's something you have to tack on to an audit. And they usually have different outputs and different calcs. They're what we'd call ASHRAE level 3+. And it's basically, they will be very similar to an obligated energy audit and contain everything that they contain, but they'll have some other focus that the audit is kind of narrated around or the calculations are developed for. If you have a franchise or a group, my advice is to do what they call an ASHRAE level 1, which is a benchmark priority assessment, which allows you to get all your sites, just get the bills for them, develop a benchmark against all of them versus, either process or area, depending on what the the site is, and that'll give you a better targeted kind of model to go after with maybe the SME audit or the obligated energy audit, if you were looking for a more detailed way to do it with franchises or groups. You know, this is much cheaper than doing any of these, and you can do it remotely. So it's a good way to target the sites that are wasting the most energy. In Ireland at the moment, there's this voucher for SME style audits. So anyone under 250 employees, less than 50 mil turnover, you can get a 2K voucher from SCAI, and people could do an audit for you. Just to make you aware of it, if anybody is looking for this, you can come to us and we can show you how to fill in the form if you want, and you can get a free audit. Okay. Another one that's quite popular at the moment, just because of ESG reporting becoming so popular, is these carbon neutrality projects. They're a bit more detailed. You can usually tack them on to any other type of audit. It depends on what size of site you have, what they'll end up being. But, you know, this is kind of an overall view of how you'd go about laying out a carbon neutrality roadmap. You go establish the baseline, then implement your smaller cost solutions and apply for grants and stuff like that, and then go for the bigger cost solutions later on, and then use some type of offset to get rid of whatever other emissions you have. So either it'll be plant trees, or go on a purchase plan, or go on like green energy plans, which are providers or stuff like that, just to give you another option. So if anybody's interested in an audit from us or help around any energy stuff, you can just give us a contact. You can contact me by email at dylanwalsh.celticdynamics.com, or go through our website, and we'll just get in touch with you. We'll set up the site assessment, so the site visit, tell you what you need to fill in if you are looking for the free one or whatever, and then you know, out of that you'll get a proposal of solutions, quotes for doing the project. You know, if you're going ahead with us to a project, we'll develop a contract and do design documents and attach them to the contract, so on and so on. And like, our goal is to, you know, prove our capabilities to you and to support you in, you know, longer lasting relationship, you know, helping you implement energy solutions in the future, or just being an advice kind of person you can come to. And the objective of us is to help you repeat that across multiple sites if you have multiple sites, you know. So that's that. So yeah, so how can we help you? I suppose the best thing then is to just answer any questions. So I'm just going to go unmute everybody now. So if anybody has any questions, you can unmute yourself there and ask us, and if there's more specific stuff you want to know.
So Dylan, after you do the audit, you and your company is able to then manage a project and recommend solutions and help in the quotation and implementation of the solutions. Is that?
Yeah, so most energy auditors, unless they're a single contractor, will be energy service providers as well. So we are one. There's many others. There's a list of them if you go onto SCI's website, if you're, you know, looking at other people. But yeah, they typically will quote to do the project themselves, and that's what should be contained in the energy audit. And then, you know, you can do the project management, and they'll get all the contractors you need to install and whatever, and they'll get you quotes. The advantage of that typically is you can get them to do the due diligence. So if it was us, you know, we'll get you 3 quotes from different vendors, check them against each other, try and get you the cheapest value, apply for any grants that are available for them, and then you don't have to do it yourselves. You know, it's normal in most countries. You know, that's the way it would go, because it was all the energy service providers that started doing energy audits initially, or M&E contractors and that kind of stuff. You know, yeah. So.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Anybody else got any questions? If you don't want to talk, you can throw them in chat as well, just if anybody's worried about that. Okay. All right, so I suppose we'll leave it there if no one's got any questions, but this will be uploaded to YouTube, and I'll send a link around to everyone in case you want to have a look back over it. And you can always reach me either through the website or through my email or phone number there. You know, if you're interested in an audit, or if you want one of the free ones, we'll help you fill in the form or whatever you need to do. Okay. Yeah. Also, if you're in a different country as well, we can do them for other countries too. Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye bye.